Did sanctioning tornado cash work? A new report from the New York Fed suggests it did, with some important caveats. Sanctions are an effort to throw the weight of the U.S. dollar around to tamp down on activities the U.S. government thinks may be harmful, like money laundering to fund terror groups or rogue nations. The New York Federal Reserve thinks they had a real effect in crypto. You're reading State of Crypto, a CoinDesk newsletter looking at the intersection of cryptocurrency and government. Click here to sign up for future editions. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York published a report Wednesday finding that sanctions against Tornado Cash did actually have an effect on the crypto mixer's usage. Obviously, the big question around Tornado Cash is whether people have the right to transact privately online and how mixers fit into this right. Kind of a secondary question is whether these services are censorship resistant, as some in the industry have claimed. The New York Federal Reserve took a look at the effect of the Office of Foreign Asset Control's 2022 sanctions against Tornado Cash. When a person or entity is sanctioned, OFAC is banning any U.S. persons that is a U.S. citizen in the U.S. or abroad, or resident of the U.S., or an entity that has a similar kind of tie to the U.S. from engaging with the sanctioned party. After OFAC first blacklisted Tornado Cash, usage plummeted some 90%, TRM Labs reported in October 2023. In the 2 years since it was first sanctioned, however, usage has grown back to some extent. Wednesday's NY Fed paper said, while volumes and transaction diversity for larger Tornado Cash pools never fully recovered to pre-sanction levels, we observe recovery in the smaller pools, which may indicate retail users continue to find the product attractive, the report said. Moreover, block proposers include Tornado Cash transactions, but block builders are excluding them, the paper continued. You can read the paper at this link or my initial write-up at this link, but I wanted to highlight two details the paper emphasized. The first is this suggestion that sanctions compliance really kicked in after an August 2023 court ruling finding that Tornado Cash was indeed an entity for the purposes of OFAC's definitions. And the second, which is tied to the first, is that the main entities not complying with the sanctions have ideological issues, the true believers in censorship resistance, in other words. We find direct evidence of large builders switching to a cooperative posture following the ruling, giving credence to the idea that clarity around regulation is a pivotal factor to determining whether to cooperate, the paper said. With the ruling, we find two builders responsible for over half of the non-cooperative blocks, pointing to significant dependence on a few players to facilitate the settlement of Tornado Cash transactions. This heavy dependence on a few builders reveals a surprising level of fragility in the censorship resistance of Ethereum. As a result, Tornado Cash's privacy functionality has deteriorated relative to before, the paper said, both because the transaction volume and number of different wallets engaging with the mixer have dropped over the past 2 years. What's more, the paper said blocks that contain Tornado Cash transactions generate lower fees than blocks that don't. Validators that process these blocks are more likely to be motivated by philosophical reasons than pure profit, the paper said. The overall paper is worth a read as mixers increasingly draw scrutiny from international regulators over their potential uses by groups like Lazarus. Bitcoin bounces to $53,000 after brutal sell-off reminiscent of COVID crash. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies followed the rest of the global stock market with a massive sell-off Monday, though both crypto and more traditional stock markets recovered to some extent Tuesday. Good thing no one panicked. Binance challenges $86 million Indian tax show cause. Notice source: India's Directorate General of Goods and Services Tax Intelligence believes Binance owes it taxes on transactions the exchange processed. Binance has challenged the notice. Trump-themed DJT token issued by Martin Shkreli suddenly dives 90%. The DJT token, a Solana-based coin that Martin Shkreli claimed he launched with Donald Trump's youngest son Barron, saw its value drop 90% Tuesday in a possible rug pull. Later in the day, Eric Trump, another of the former president's sons, tweeted he had truly fallen in love with crypto, DeFi, while Donald Trump Jr. hinted at some new crypto-related product or offering. This week we appear to be in the summer doldrums. Am I missing events? Let me know. 404 Media obtained various internal NVIDIA documents showing NVIDIA's employees discussed the company's efforts to scrape a lot of sources, including YouTube and Netflix, to train AI products. The New York Times' Google illegally maintained a monopoly in its efforts to keep its search business dominant. A federal judge ruled Monday. You can read the entire ruling here. It's probably too early to assess just how significant this ruling will be, but it seems pretty likely to be significant. The Wall Street Journal Evan Gershkovich, Paul Whelan, and Alsu Kurmasheva were among those freed in a massive prisoner swap between the U.S., Germany, Slovenia, and Russia. The journal, Gershkovich's employer, has an in-depth article on what the last 16 months have looked like in the news organization's efforts to lobby for his freedom. The New Yorker over the weekend, presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. published a video where he described how he picked up a dead bear cub with the intent of skinning it and keeping the meat, but instead ended up leaving it in Central Park stage to make it look like a bicyclist hit it. This was apparently to front-run a New Yorker article profiling him. Reuters, Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fled the country after days of protests that saw over 300 students and other people killed amid protests over the nation's jobs quota system. CNN. There are ongoing riots in some parts of the UK spurred by the stabbing of 3 school children last week. Though the assailant was born in the UK, rioters have been targeting asylum seekers and Muslims or people who look Muslim. If you've got thoughts or questions on what I should discuss next week or any other feedback you'd like to share, feel free to email me at nickcoindesk.com or find me on Twitter, Nicolashta. You can also join the group conversation on Telegram. See y'all next week.